Hello, and welcome back to the Field Podcast. Today, I'm Melissa Crick, your host, and we have Destigmatizing Sexual Health with Eve Hall for you today. The ways to engage with this episode are as follows. Are there areas of your sexuality that you need to revisit? Areas that have been ignored or you have preconceived notions on? Has something shamed you into changing your opinion of your body or sexuality or how you experience pleasure? Allow yourself to feel free in every aspect of your body and ask yourself these important questions. Thanks so much for being with us today. We hope you enjoy our episode Destigmatizing Sexual Health with Eve Hall. Take care, and thanks so much again for being with us. Hello, Field Podcast audience. Welcome back this week. Okay, strap it on, ladies. You need to hear this today, and you're going to understand why here soon. And this is a topic that I try to address at least once a season, the last couple of seasons, because it's just that important. And we've gotten so much unhealthy misinformation about it since we were very young in our health classes. And we need to write the ship on this so that we can have the experiences that we were designed and built to have and not believe the lies and stigmas and misinformation that we've been fed about this over the years. And this is going to make sense to you as we get into this conversation with my new friend, Eve Hall, who I met through our good friends at Podmatch. We are going to get into discussions that may bring up sexual abuse today. I want to say that up front for those of you that may be triggered by that. It's not going to be a deep dive into that, but that language may come up. So I just want you to be prepared up front about that. But we're going to get into an important conversation with Eve today and how she got to this space on herself and realized she could help other women as well with our sexual health and how we view pleasure. And you've heard me talk about this before, like I said, with our good friend, Dr. Fanny Boulanger, Carrie Swinion, Melissa L. Height, and I'm adding Eve to the conversation because each one of these ladies has a specific approach that I think can be really helpful. And different things resonate with different people when it comes to addressing our sexual health. And I think Eve has got a treasure trove of resources here today, but she's got her own story and how she got here. And we're going to get to learn that today. Eve describes herself as passionate, believes in the power of pleasure and that every body was created to experience it. We have an organ that was designed for pleasure, and it's good to access that. Eve Hall, welcome to the Field Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that lovely introduction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to get right into it because this is something that you utilize yourself, but I want to hear your story with this is prioritizing self-care in your life. Things early on were bumpy. You had your own really, traumatic experiences regarding sex early on, and those had to be healed from and dealt with. And I would imagine that had to become part of your self-care. But talk to me about your self-care journey and where it is today and how you've grown in that area.
Absolutely. I love that you bring up self-care because it is so, so important. And a lot of times people think of self-care as like, dyeing their hair and getting their nails done, right? And that is not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about caring for yourself emotionally, right? And that I was a survivor of abuse and sexual abuse, more specifically as a child. And I carried that through my teenage years. And in my 20s, I knew that I needed to heal from that abuse. And so I spent years in different programs. I spent years in a program called SIA, which stands for Survivors of Incest Anonymous. I also spent I spent years journaling with a group from that SIA group, a couple of women that I met there, and we journaled the entire program together. And it took years for us to do all of that work. But when I came out on the other side, I felt like I had peeled a gigantic layer of that onion, right, of healing away, and I could sort of go on and create relationships that I thought were healthy, right?
Yeah.
However, in my late, I ended up not wanting to get married for many years because I thought very negatively about marriage after having experienced what I had experienced in my family.
Mm.
Eventually, I, caught the bug, right?
Yeah.
And I guess the societal pressures too made
Yeah.
me feel like, that was something that I had to do as a woman, right? And so I want to
Mhm.
say right now, for everybody listening out there that feels that pressure, that getting married because someone else wants you to or because society tells you to is not the right reason. Really know
Yes.
what the right reasons are for yourself before you jump into that, right? So
Yeah.
eventually I did get married in my late 30s and I had two children. They're amazing children. But because of a lot of the issues that I was still sort of peeling away,
Mhm.
I ended up in a relationship that was a sexless relationship. And, me being
Mm.
very sexual, that was a no go for me. And, we went through a couple of years of therapy, um, off and on, and we're not able to save the marriage. So I went through a divorce. And,
Man.
many women go through this experience. Unfortunately, the divorce rate is, around 50% for first marriages, and it only goes up after that in second
Wow.
and third marriages. So it's really, really, really high. And so it's something that many women experience. And, after having gotten out of that unhealthy relationship in a
Mhm.
sexless marriage, I really felt like I needed to reconnect with my sexuality. And so I went
Yeah.
on my own sort of journey of sexual exploration. And I like to say that I got myself on the path to sexual liberation. And through that journey, I learned so many things about myself, about what I love, what I don't like. Um, why I feel like pleasure is essential to my health and other people's
Mhm.
health. And
Mhm.
I decided that I wanted to start sharing that. And in addition
Mm.
to sort of going parallel with that was my career. I'm a
Yeah.
licensed physical therapist. And
Mm.
so I became specialized in the pelvic floor and sexual health conditions. So I am a licensed physical therapist. I have a company called Inspire Health Physical Therapy and Wellness, and I treat
Mm.
pelvic floor conditions. And I like to say that I am a sexual health, quote unquote, physical therapist because pelvic floor conditions often are sexual health conditions because they affect our sexual health, from
Yeah.
incontinence to painful sex, to decreased vaginal sensitivity and dryness. All of those things affect women, vaginal atrophy, and all of those things can be treated in physical therapy. So my interests sort of
Mm.
went not just from my own personal exploration and trying to heal from my trauma and self-care in my own arena, but also expanding that to my career and helping other women as well. And my podcast called Please Me is all about destigmatizing conversations about sex and sexual health. So that sort of goes hand in hand with all of it.
Yeah. And you bring up so many important points. And what I love about, and you really talk a lot about these things on your podcast, but there are so many questions that you answer on your website and your podcast, or that you bring up that are women are afraid to ask, because for all the reasons we've been told we're not supposed to, it's inappropriate, blah 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 blah, all that bad information we got starting in middle school health, our parents, setting us up and being, because they got the same tropes and stigmas. And if you came up, depending on the environment you came up in, if you came up in a faith space that was very rigid about it, just lump on purity culture. So how do you help when women come to you, because this ties to self-care, where do you start with them to get them on a true healthy, this is part of your self-care, this is part of your health journey, where do you start with them when they come to you with these things?
So I always look comprehensively at a woman holistically, and
Yeah.
I like to do a really thorough evaluation of
Hmm.
their any medical conditions that they may have, any medications that they might take that might affect their sexuality, and then asking very specific questions about what issues they're having with their sexual health.
Okay.
And so it really is a lot of different areas that we cover. We cover nutrition because nutrition can
Hmm.
affect our health in general. And so, of course, it
Sure.
can help affect our sexual health as well. So we talk about that as well. Supplements that they take, all of that. So I look very holistically and then looking at the symptoms of the issues that
Hmm.
they're having specifically so that we can figure out what exactly the diagnosis is or what exactly the issue is so that we can work on trying to heal that.
Yeah, yeah. I love that holistic approach. And because, and I'm going to go out of order here. Normally, we go into confidently setting boundaries next, but I want to go to taking care of our emotional health, physical health, mental health, sexual health. Those are all parts of it. So, talk about those connections. Then, talk about your history and story with that, because I would imagine early on, when you come from a trauma background, you carry things in your body and you don't even realize it. But all those things that are unprocessed, not moved through, hidden away, stored away, pushed down, secret, shame, all that, you are carried in your physical body, and they can show up in some really harmful ways if they're not moved through. So, and so talk to me about your journey with that and getting to like that realization of the connections of all those things to our health.
Absolutely. So I talk often about nutrition, and I was introduced to a product about, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, that I currently still use and will use until the day I die.
Hmm.
If you have questions about it, you can certainly reach out to me on my website. But it is basically encapsulated produce that gives you the
Oh,
nutrition of 30 fruits and vegetables in your body every single day. And that
wow.
bridges the gap between what you should be eating and what you do eat so that you
Okay.
are getting all of that nutrition, right? So when I learned about this product and all of the incredible studies that had been done on it,
Yeah.
I was sort of sold. I was
Yeah.
like, my body needs this. Of course, most people need to get 10 servings of fruits and vegetables in their body every single day. And most people fall very short of that. The
Yeah.
average American only eats 1.5 servings of fruits and vegetables daily,
Oh,
which
wow.
is
Wow.
very, very low. So we are
Wow.
very nutrient poor in this country, right? If we're talking just America,
Yeah.
of course, all
Yeah.
every country is different, but from the United States, 1.5 servings. So when I found out about that and how important it is to our gut health, right? Which is where
Yeah.
our immune system is, right? 70% of our immune system resides in our gut. They say that the gut also has a second brain, which often will trigger cravings and that sort of thing. So it's
Yeah.
very important to have a healthy gut. So when I learned about that, I incorporated it into my life and saw massive changes in my health. And then I started also talking to my patients about it because when you're trying to heal from any kind of condition, it's very important for your body to be functioning at optimal capacity so that you can heal from whatever that condition may be, whether it be a knee
Yeah.
replacement or vaginal atrophy. I mean, all of
Yeah.
anything that you're trying to heal from in your body is going to benefit from better nutrition. So that
Yeah.
was one aspect of it that I, incorporated into my practice. And then, emotional stuff, right? So, of course,
Yeah.
I went through years of therapy, constantly reading. And I feel like the podcast itself has been a healing journey. And I'm sure you can
Sure.
relate because
I can.
every expert that you speak to, every author that you speak to, that's, a specialist in their area or whatever that may be, is really bringing you information that you're integrating into your life as well. So that has been a beautiful, unexpected healing journey for me.
Yeah.
And so, those are some of the things that, have helped me along the way and brought me to where I am today.
Yeah, yeah. And just such great information for you to have for the people you work with, too. So, talk to me about confidently setting healthy boundaries for yourself. You've gone through a lot of things where you've really probably had to learn, like, okay, this is where I'm going to give my energy to. This is who I'm going to surround myself with. This is where I'm going to give my time. When your boundaries are violated at such a young age by people you're supposed to trust, that just adds another layer of difficulty in understanding what that means for you and the necessity of that. So talk to me about your boundaries journey.
I love that question because, and you're absolutely right. When at 5 years old, you're being sexually abused, you're being taught not to be able to say no, right? Because
Yeah.
your body, your temple is being
Yeah.
taken from you and someone else is using it without asking, without permission, without consent. So you already
Yeah.
are learning unhealthy behavior. And
Yeah.
so that followed me through my teens, followed me, through my 20s when I was dating. And it's so important to learn how to set boundaries around yourself, around your body. So learning how to say no is something that
Mm.
is a process and takes time. It takes healing. It takes therapy. It takes working on yourself. And it takes a lot of self-awareness.
Yeah.
So absolutely working on creating boundaries around my body was essential. And then in
Sure.
relationships, creating boundaries around consent is so key as well. And we're talking sexual health today. So I want to bring up consent because,
Yeah.
consent is so important when it comes to sex. Oftentimes, people out there, if you're listening, and I know I myself have found myself in situations where, I may not be wanting to go down that road of sex. But you come across a partner who is trying to convince you otherwise, or trying to pressure you, or trying to, say that, or you have a mindset around, oh, well, if I do this, they'll like me, and so there's a lot.
Yes.
Yes. And, those are not the reasons to have sex, right? So you really have to
Yeah.
come to a realization around what are the reasons that are right for you to say yes in the situation, right?
Yeah.
And then be able to communicate that with your partner. So
Mhm.
so there's just so much to go that goes into that question, but that's
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
little piece of it.
That was great. Thank you so much for that. Talk to me about learning to trust yourself, because that for we get messages very early on, especially as little girls and women, not to trust our bodies, not to trust this, it's not to be trusted, it's going to lead us astray. But you've got to be able to trust yourself to be able to set those healthy boundaries, to be able to understand consent and your right to give consent, not just sexually, but in your life period, in how you want to live your life by your expectations, which we'll get to in a bit. But talk to me about that learning to trust yourself piece.
I think that's so essential. And I think that comes with maturity and time. It's not something
Yeah.
that automatically you're like, okay, I'm going to trust myself now. No, it comes with time. It comes with practice. It comes with healing. And, it comes with self worth. You
Yeah.
have to be able to have confidence in yourself and know what your self worth is to be able to say no, and to be able to trust yourself to say no and to know that that's what's best for you in that moment. So it really
Absolutely.
is a multi-layered, thing when it comes to trusting yourself. But once you do,
Yeah.
and you get to that point where you're like, okay, I know what I want and I know how to communicate that, you're going to
Mhm.
be so much better off and you're going to have such a happier life because you're going to be able to set those boundaries not people please, not,
Yeah.
think about like, yourself first before
Yeah.
just like an airplane, you got to get that mask on yourself before you can
Hmm.
help anyone else. You have to help yourself first. And if you're not
Yeah.
taking care of yourself because you're taking care of five other things or five other people or everything else around you, you're not going to
Hmm.
have time for yourself. So it's so, so key to really be able to trust yourself, to make those decisions for yourself in order to take care of yourself so that when you do, you can be there for other people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So good, which leads nicely into supporting ourselves and other women unapologetically. You do that. You show up unapologetically and you support others in this journey of like, we don't need to apologize for this. We are meant to experience pleasure. But let's get ourselves to a healthy space so we can actually access the and with our consent, with our boundaries, what we know is best and healthiest for us, so we can experience that in the way we're meant to, not to mention the health benefits that come from that. So talk to me about this unapologetic journey, how you got, getting to that space, and when you realize, I think I can help others with this too, because you talked about you kind of merged your worlds. Was there just a point where it like clicked, like, wait a minute, I've I've learned how to heal and help myself through these different tools and resources and mechanisms. I think I can help others too.
Yes, I mean, it all sort of did click after my divorce and sort of having gone through my journey of sexual liberation, right?
Mm,
And so I developed what I like to term, what I have coined, big clit energy, right? And big clit energy is that confidence that you have in your sexuality,
mm,
and that confidence that you have really translates to all areas of your life. If you're
yeah,
confident in your sexuality, you're also going to be confident in front of, the video camera when you're doing something like this, or, giving that speech, or, having that presentation at work. It really translates to all areas of our life. So it's so,
yeah,
so important to have that sexual confidence. And, you mentioned the clitoris as being, an organ that only women have, that's meant specifically for pleasure. A lot of women don't even understand that the clitoris is an entire organ that's almost the size of a penis. It is the
yeah,
female equivalent of the man's penis, but
yeah,
it's not meant for anything but pleasure.
yeah.
We don't
And
need
no
it
one
for
tells you that in sex ed.
Right. You don't need it for procreation. And, you mentioned too societal norms and how we're shamed about our bodies.
Yeah,
And there's no shame in sexuality. It is how we all got here.
yeah,
So,
no
if you think
kidding.
about it, yeah, if you think about it that way, literally everybody is having sex. If they're having children, they are having sex. Literally everybody in society is having sex. So why are we so ashamed of it? And really,
Yeah,
it's all about, the society that we are brought up in, whether it be the religious, or spiritual, guidance that we get as children. Our schools teach us abstinence when, in reality, we are all sexual beings. We are born sexual and we will die sexual, and there's really
yeah,
no time when we are not sexual beings. And so
mhm,
why are we ignoring that part of ourselves? It's so, so
yeah,
important to really understand who we are as human beings, and to embrace that sexuality, because it is such a huge part of our lives. And
yeah,
if we ignore it, or we tamp it down, or we try to make it shameful, we're going to just create havoc in a very large chunk of our lives that can really be something that is enhancing our experience as humans on this planet. And,
yeah,
our organ, the clitoris, is such an amazing organ, and it is built for pleasure. So why are we
yeah,
not giving it the attention that it needs? And so that's why I
absolutely.
coined the term big clit energy, because I believe that women should be proud of their sexuality and, hone that confidence. And so, just like men have big dick energy, right?
Yeah,
Women have big clit energy, and, it's a beautiful thing. And we should all be, waving a flag, saying, I
yeah.
want big clit energy too,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we got the proper education early on, then it opens opportunities for questions. You take the shame. I mean, how many sexual health issues could be avoided if we just gave everybody the information up front instead of operating out of these old fear tropes that aren't good for us, that aren't healthy. I mean, you talk about doing a number, purity culture does a number, especially on girls. I mean, we are taught that we've got to basically hide our bodies from the time we start growing any kind of boobs so that we don't, wreak havoc with the boys instead of the boys and girls just learning about their bodies together and things that are going to come up so they know how to address them and have tools and resources when that happens. I mean, we just go at it. It's such an unhealthy way. And so it sets us up for failure before we've even had a chance to start.
Absolutely. And if you have girls out there like I do, I have two daughters, you
Yeah, I
know,
have three.
yes. And, the pressure around them wearing a bra when it was not necessary at all because,
Yeah.
oh, they have a nipple. Big deal. Like, why are we making such big deals? Why are we over sexualizing our children? It's just
Yes.
a natural part of development. It is okay when the, nipple buds come in. It is okay, when a child has breasts, and they're developing. It is not shameful. We should not be teaching our children to cover themselves up and be ashamed of their bodies. We should be teaching them to understand that this is just a normal part of their development, and
Yeah.
really embracing it because it's beautiful. It's beautiful to be able to see all of those developmental milestones, including the ones that are around our sexuality.
Yeah, absolutely. And just that it just sets us up to have healthy relationships with our bodies. And again, I go back to knowing the right questions to ask. I told you before we started recording, I've mentioned it before with other guests that I've had. I did not know I had a clitoris or what it was until I was probably around in my early 30s. That's
Wow.
ridiculous. That's
Yes.
insane. I've been married. I got married when I was, 20, just before 24 years old. I had three children by then. And I
And
was
you didn't
like,
know what a clitoris was?
I did not know. And that what it's
Wow.
because it was hid. I grew up in very conservative faith spaces and it was hidden. It wasn't talked about. It was very much, you know, no, 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 no. You get married, you do it for children, you do it when your husband wants to, but nothing about my own experience, my own organs, my own pleasure, what it does for your health, your serotonin levels. I mean, and you think of on the flip side of that, the stressors and the impact the stress has on your body when you don't have a healthy relationship with sex and the impact that has on your relationships. I mean, there's just so much that goes into it that we aren't doing well. And we are doing such a disservice to all of us from boys and girls from a very early age. If we were just taught not to fear, not to make someone else responsible for our own bodies and our own health, all these different things. Gosh, we need to be doing this so much better than we are.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned, the health benefits and, an orgasm a day
Yeah.
keeps the mental health doctor away, right? Because you are
Yeah.
releasing all of those feel good chemicals in your body. And it really does improve your mood. It's a great stress reliever and it is an
Mm-hmm.
excellent sleep aid. So,
Mm.
healthy having healthy orgasms daily is really, really good for your health. So I challenge
Yeah.
the people listening out there to really try to incorporate, masturbation more if they don't have a partner, or, getting your partner to, meet you up in the bedroom, whenever you can, to
Yeah.
really, hone those skills and improve your sexual health because it's going to improve your overall health as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that. And saying, masturbation, it's for many years, the M word is like, oh, we can't talk about that. And there's a lot of stigmas around that as well. In and what's appropriate, it's okay for boys to go through that early on as they figuring out their bodies, but don't, not if you're a girl. I mean, there's just so many unhealthy things that aren't addressed in a proper way. So thank you for bringing that up. I think that's really important for us. And if there's something getting in your way in yourself or your relationship, there's resources and help for you out there to access so you can experience this fully. It is, I've said this before on the show, it's part of your health journey. It is all part of your body. It's another organ that was meant to be experienced. I'm still figuring it out. I'm 55 years old. I got a lot of unhealthy, messages over the years that I'm still unpacking. But it also, it's never too late. That's, I'm not throwing in the towel like, no, I can't ever get healthy in this area. No, absolutely I can. And so age don't let that get in the way of what's possible for you too. So wanted to say that. Okay, so the importance of coming back to your why and your values in everything you do. Talk to me about how your why and your values formulated how it is you approach your life today, and where you put your energy, the things you care about, what lights you up, the kind of work you do.
Absolutely. Well, my why is definitely all around, you know, my own journey with sexual health and how it improved my life and how I can help other people to do the same. So,
Yeah.
all of that is incorporated into my business. I do intimacy coaching as well as I do physical therapy for the pelvic floor and sexual health conditions. And so, and then of course my podcast is all about, talking about sexual health and how it can, help women to really empower themselves to get on that journey of sexual liberation for themselves. And that really looks very different for so many people.
Yeah.
For some people, it might just be, let me incorporate masturbation into my life, and really hone those skills to know exactly what I want in my body.
Yeah.
For other people, it might be, sharing fantasies with their partner and making those reality, so, and
Yeah.
there's like just so many different versions of what sexual liberation means for any one given person. It's a very personal
Sure.
thing. But I think it's so, so important to think about why you would want that for yourself.
Mm.
And so, that is my why, to really try and help women, in it specifically, get on that journey and on that path to sexual liberation and really honing those skills in confidence in their sexuality and developing that big clit energy for themselves.
Absolutely. And you said something important, accessing why. Make sure that your why is coming from a healthy place, that your why is for you and your health and your well-being, going back to that consent piece. So thank you so much for bringing that up. Living out of our own expectations versus others. I mean, this whole topic is mired in societal, cultural, faith-based expectations. So talk to me about your expectations journey and really moving comfortably into living out of your own expectations versus others. Because, going back to you, once you find something that works and is healthy for you, you want to share it with other people, which really informs your why and your values. But there's this whole area of expectations that can really get in the way of us being as healthy as we're meant to be. So talk to me about the expectations journey.
I love this question because I think it's so important to look at yourself and not in a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
You are exactly who you are because of all of the influences that you've had in your life, right? So if your church is telling you one thing, or if your family is telling you another thing, all of that is going to be incorporated into your beliefs, right? And then so how can we change those beliefs if they're not serving us, right? And so really
Right.
picking that apart. And for me, I know that, no matter how successful I was in my career, no matter, what amazing things I was doing. I bought a house really early on all by myself, and there's just a lot of things that I did as an early young adult that I was very proud of, and that, I felt like my family was very proud of as well. But, every time I would go visit my grandmother, she would say, so when are you getting married? That was her first question.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And
And to
that
her,
happens time and time again.
yes, and to her, that was like the pinnacle of what a woman's worth is to get married so that you can
Mm.
have children and like care for your husband. And, I come from a Latina culture, so that is very ingrained in our culture for,
Sure.
generations and where the woman, supports the husband and serves him and is a secondary to him, right? And so,
Yeah.
no matter what I was doing in my life, I always came back to those expectations at home. And so, really
Mm.
trying to understand how that affected me took
Yeah.
a long, it was a journey, and
Sure.
absolutely those expectations affected me. And now on the other side of having gone through an unhappy marriage and a divorce and then really working on myself, I feel like I create my own expectations now. What are the
Mm.
expectations of myself? What is it that I
Yeah.
want? And what other things outside of my personal things that I can affect on my own, or have control of, what
Hmm.
outside of that can support me. And those are the things
Yeah.
I try and seek now, as opposed to letting society try and tell me what. And you're absolutely right, this was a leap of faith, having started this podcast about a year and a half ago and really talking openly about it. And I know that
Hmm.
many times I would create reels and I would say, oh my gosh, this reel is a really good one, I want to use it. However, do I really want to say that? Do I really want to put that out? I just
Yeah.
said little sex or whatever it was. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
things that you're like, do I really want to put that out there? Is it a little too much information? But you know what? We need to have these conversations. So
Yeah.
I've been very bold about what I've been sharing about myself, my journey, and I hope that it resonates with people. And I do think it does, because I hear from my listeners that it resonates with them. And so, this is what my life's journey is. This is what I want to do.
Well, and you honestly, I've listened to some of your podcasts and you ask the questions that people want to ask, but they're afraid to. And so thank you for that, because I think that because of all the stigmas and expectations that still exist. And I say this to women all the time, you're as we get a script as little girls and we are told that if we follow the script we'll be happy, and so many times the script does not serve us. It's not what's best for us. It's not what we were created to be. And we have to at some point listen to ourselves, listen to our bodies, the how we're just the angst that we're feeling, and pay attention to that and address that. And you were able to do that. And now you're able to help others through that experience. So thank you for sharing that. I love just the I'm going to audacity in the best way that you're showing up in this space, and asking those questions, and empowering other women to ask those same questions too. Like, oh, wait a minute, we can talk about this. Because on here, we're all about creating safe spaces to talk about the things we've been told not to talk about that get in the way of us being the healthiest versions of ourselves. And this goes nicely into accepting the layered aspects of ourselves, accepting all those parts and pieces that happen, because there's parts and pieces of your life that were not healthy or good or pleasant that you've had to like heal from and move forward from. And that has enabled you to live out, feel, finding empowerment, embracing layers. So talk to me about the impact that has had on your relationship with yourself as well as your relationship with other people.
I feel like it's so important to really work on these areas for yourself, and empower yourself, because if you are not empowering yourself, you're going to fall back into the merry-go-round of generational trauma, that
Yeah.
can continue throughout generations over and over when you're not stopping that generational trauma. So really thinking
Yeah.
about what you need to heal from and how you can stop that generational trauma for yourself. And it's hard to
Hmm.
recognize sometimes,
It really is.
and you get into relationships and you are recreating what has happened in the past, not
Yeah.
knowing that that is exactly what you're doing. So it takes a lot of
Yeah.
self awareness. And then, when you do get to that point where you are healed in many different ways, you will start to attract different type of energy into your world,
Yeah.
and different types of relationships that are going to really feed you your body, mind, and spirit. So
Yeah.
when you start to see the benefits of that, then you realize, that is, you're on the right path. And so, I just encourage women to really think about that, think about what's happened in the past, right? It is the
Hmm.
past, and we can't constantly be focused on that. We have to be focused on the present in order to be truly happy in our lives. But what can we do to heal from that so that we can get to the place where we are creating the best lives for ourselves?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. All right. We are winding down here. Um, Name 5 activities that nourish you.
Okay. I love yoga. I love
Mm.
exercising. I love dancing. Dancing to me is life. I studied
Mm.
African dance and many forms of dance in New York City for many years, and I just still love to dance.
Mm.
And I feel like it's a really great self expression. I salsa
Yeah.
dance. I bachata dance. So dancing is something that I incorporate into my life a lot. Meditation is something that I do daily, and breathing. Breathing is such an important
Mm.
skill to hone, and
Yeah.
we all constantly breathing from the moment we, are born to the moment that we die. We are breathing throughout our whole life. So if we can learn to hone the skill of controlling our breath, that
Hmm.
help us in so many different ways in terms of stress relief, and all of the things that learning how to control your breathing can do. And sleep, I will say that sleep is
Yeah.
so essential, and for me that's been the biggest struggle,
Yeah.
and something I'm really actively working on getting better at. But sleep is essential because when you sleep, that is when your body can heal itself.
Yeah.
And your cortisol levels are high, you may not be getting enough sleep. So it's really important to look at sleep as well. So those are some 5 things that,
Yeah.
I do myself and that
Yeah.
I'm working on, because I don't have it all figured out. I
Right.
am, I'm still, trying to figure things out for myself. And sleep is one of those things that I feel like I'm still really actively trying to work on to improve.
Yeah, yeah, it's so important. And it's coming up more and more, but yeah, and I understand that. I used to be a great sleeper, and a couple of years ago, perimenopause, menopause, but I'm trying to figure that out because it is so important to just the impacts. And you talked about the importance of breath. And so many times we hold our breath when we're stressed, or we have shallow breaths. And the ability of breath to reset our nervous system is so powerful, and being mindful and present with that. Thank you so much for those. All right. 5 words on how you want to feel the next 6 months.
Okay. Um, let's see. 5 words in the next 6 months. Empowered as always. I
Mm-hmm.
want to feel um, that big clit energy, and
Yeah.
that's 3 words. So I don't know if
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
counts
No,
as
I love
5 words.
that. Yeah.
There's a
Absolutely.
whole phrase, right?
Yeah.
And I want to feel successful in all of the areas of my life, whether it be my family life, as a mother, as a podcaster, as a physical therapist, as a coach. I want to find success in all of those areas of my life.
Yeah, that's great. I love that, and I love how you brought in the big clit energy again, because I think that's so empowering and so powerful if we can tap into that. Tell people where they can find you, and all of this will be on our resources page, listeners, at embracinglayers.com. But tell people real quick where they can find you, your website, your podcast, before we wrap up today.
Absolutely. So you can find me on pleaseme.online. That is my website. If you go to the contacts area of the website, all of the links of all of my socials are there. So if you want to follow me on any of the socials that you like to visit, you can follow me there. I do a webinar once a month. And I have some of my webinars on that site. I also have a Patreon page now, and I have all of my
Mm.
most recent webinars and all of my most recent shows where I do ad free, commercial free, and early releases, and have a lot of other special content on the Patreon account as well. So I can send you all
Okay.
of that information so you can
Yeah.
include that.
Absolutely. I will do that. And you can link to the podcast there. Lots of great information, lots of great resources. Eve Hall, thank you so much for being with me here today. Such a great resource to us. What a great example you're setting for your daughters, too, of how to live a full, authentic, fully healthy life, asking those questions, not being afraid. Thank you so much. These conversations are important, they matter, and they impact our health in so many ways that we don't take into consideration. So I appreciate you being a bold voice in this very important arena.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Thanks for having me on Feels.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Glad to have you here. Ladies, tap into that big cleat energy this week. And if that makes you squirmy when I say that, tap into why and start getting curious about things that you need to unpack for yourself so you can be your healthiest, most well person that you were designed to be. Take good care of yourselves and have a great week. Hello, Melissa Crook here. Thank you so much for joining us on the Feel podcast today, Finding Empowerment, Embracing Layers. I hope you found today's framework and resources supportive and informative. To learn more about all that we offer here at the Embracing Layers Network, visit embracinglayers.com. You can go to our contact form to schedule me as a speaker for your next conference, workshop, or seminar. You can go to our book page to order our book that Jessica Garrison, our wonderful and talented writer and author, authored with my support. And engage with this framework in written form with your journal or in a book club with other women, inviting them on this journey with you. You can look at our resources page for all of the helpful and insightful resources our guests offer and share. You can find the schedule for our weekly Together We Feel women's panel conversations that we're holding each Monday on our YouTube channel. And you can find the links to all the spaces and places you can follow, engage with us on social media, and join our engagements that are happening on our Substack site. There is also a donation page where you can donate to support our work to ensure we can continue to bring you these incredible guests, conversations, and support. Thanks again for joining me this week. Share with your friends and give us a review on your favorite listening platform. Your feedback helps us ensure we're bringing you the content that will best support you and having an empowered, embracing layers journey. Take good care, and thanks for giving us some of your valuable time today. We truly appreciate you so deeply.